Episode 4 Eloise's Story. Welcome back, mes amis, to the Enchanted Labyrinth of Luminaria. I am the keeper of the labyrinth, and today we follow our young explorers along the path of spring, where they will learn more about their mysterious French guide, Eloise, and discover the rich traditions that celebrate the arrival of spring in her homeland. The path of spring stretches before our adventurers like a living painting. Flowering cherry and apple trees line the way, their delicate petals occasionally drifting down to create a fragrant carpet underfoot. Musical fountains play gentle melodies as water dances through channels of polished stone, and butterflies of all three types, blue, gold, and purple, flit among the blossoms, their wings catching the light. The equinox orb floats just ahead of the children, its crystalline surface reflecting the beauty around them, while its interior continues to swirl with scenes of spring awakening. Eloise walks beside them, her blue scarf now adorned with embroidered flowers that match those blooming along the path. "This is beautiful," Maya says, her artistic eye captivated by the harmonious colors and sounds. "It's like walking through a perfect spring day." "Le printemps parfait," the perfect spring, Eloise agrees with a smile. This path reflects the essence of the season, renewal, growth, and the joy that comes after winter's rest. As they walk, Aidan notices something interesting about the equinox orb. "Look," he points out, "the orb is leading us toward that pavilion. Ahead, nestled in a grove of flowering trees, stands an elegant structure with a domed roof supported by slender columns. The columns are wrapped with flowering vines, and the dome appears to be made of stained glass, depicting scenes of spring celebrations. "Le pavillon des souvenirs," the pavilion of memories, Eloise explains. "It is a place where stories are shared and remembered. The labyrinth has created it especially for today." The children exchange curious glances. "Created it for today?" Luca asks, his scientific mind always seeking to understand the labyrinth's mysterious ways. "How does that work?" Eloise's eyes twinkle with amusement. "The labyrinth responds to the needs and intentions of those who journey within it. Today, it senses that it is time for you to learn more about me." This revelation surprises the children. Since they first met Eloise, she has been their guide and teacher, but they know very little about her personally. Where she comes from, how she became connected to the labyrinth, or why she speaks both French and English with such ease. "Are you going to tell us your story?" Zara asks, her observant nature having long noticed the hints of mystery surrounding their guide. "Oui," Eloise nods. "Some of it, at least. The parts that will help you understand the spring traditions of my homeland and deepen your connection to the labyrinth." They reach the pavilion and step inside. The interior is even more beautiful than it appeared from a distance. The floor is a mosaic depicting a map of France, with different regions highlighted in various colors. Comfortable cushions are arranged in a circle at the center, and the stained glass dome above filters the light into patterns of blue, gold, and purple, the colors of the equinox butterflies. The equinox orb floats to the center of the pavilion and hovers there, pulsing gently with light. The children settle onto the cushions, and Eloise takes a seat facing them, her expression becoming thoughtful as she prepares to share her story. "I was born in a small village in Provence, in the south of France," she begins, her voice taking on a melodic quality that makes her words flow like a gentle stream. It is a region known for its lavender fields, ancient olive groves, and traditions that celebrate the changing seasons. As she speaks, the equinox orb responds to her words, projecting images into the air around them, a picturesque village nestled among rolling hills, fields of purple lavender stretching to the horizon, and sun-drenched stone houses with blue shutters. My grandmother, ma grand-mère, was the keeper of our village's traditions. She knew all the old songs, the proper times for planting and harvesting, and the rituals that marked the turning of the seasons. From her, I learned to recognize the first signs of spring and to celebrate its arrival. The orb shows an image of an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair, teaching a young Héloïse how to weave flower crowns and prepare traditional spring dishes. In Provence, we celebrate the arrival of spring with La Fête du Printemps, the spring festival. It begins on the equinox and continues for several days, with different activities to honor the awakening in nature. New images appear. Villagers gathering in a town square decorated with flowers and ribbons, musicians playing traditional instruments, and tables laden with special foods. On the first day, we create Le Jardin Miniature, the miniature garden, Héloïse continues. Children plant seeds in small dishes, creating tiny gardens that represent the larger renewal happening in nature. These are placed in the village square where everyone can watch them grow throughout the spring season. The orb shows young children carefully planting seeds in decorative dishes filled with soil, their faces intent with concentration. The second day is Le Jour des Fleurs, the Day of Flowers. Everyone wears flower crowns and brings bouquets to decorate the village fountain. We believe that flowers given to water will carry wishes and prayers for a fruitful season. Images of villagers placing flowers in a central fountain appear, the water sparkling as it flows over the colorful blooms. The third day is Le Jour de la Musique, the Day of Music. Musicians play traditional spring melodies, and everyone dances in celebration of the season's energy and movement. The orb projects scenes of people dancing in circles, their movements joyful and free, while musicians play flutes, accordions, and string instruments. And the final day is Le Jour du Festin, the Day of the Feast. Families prepare dishes using the first spring vegetables and herbs, sharing food and stories as the celebration concludes. Images of tables set outdoors, laden with colorful dishes and surrounded by smiling people, float in the air around them. The children listen, entranced by these glimpses into Héloïse's childhood and the rich traditions of her homeland. But they sense there is more to her story, something that connects these spring celebrations to the magical labyrinth where they now sit. These traditions taught me to observe the subtle changes that mark the transition between seasons, Héloïse continues, to notice the first buds on trees, the return of certain birds, the changing quality of light. This awareness prepared me for my encounter with the labyrinth. The orb's images shift, showing a teenage Héloïse walking alone on a hillside path, her expression thoughtful as she observes the signs of spring around her. I was 16 when I found the entrance to the labyrinth. It appeared to me during a spring equinox when I was gathering herbs for my grandmother's special equinox tea. I saw a shimmer in the air like heat rising from sun-warmed stone, and when I approached to investigate, The orb shows young Eloise reaching toward a distortion in the air, her fingers disappearing into what appears to be an invisible doorway. I stepped through and found myself in a place of wonder, a labyrinth that changed with the seasons and responded to my thoughts and feelings. I explored for what felt like hours, discovering chambers and corridors that seemed designed specifically for me. Images of a younger Eloise wandering through magical spaces appear, some recognizable to the children from their own adventures, others entirely new. When I finally found my way back to the entrance and stepped through to my world, I discovered that no time had passed. The sun was in the same position. The birds sang the same songs. It was as if the labyrinth existed in a different flow of time. The orb shows Eloise emerging from the invisible doorway, looking around in confusion at the unchanged landscape. I returned many times after that, always on days of seasonal transition, the equinoxes and solstices. Each visit revealed new aspects of the labyrinth and deepened my understanding of its magic. Eventually, I met the keeper. At this, the children exchanged surprised glances. They know the keeper as the mysterious narrator of their adventures, a voice that guides their journey but rarely appears in physical form. The keeper explained that the labyrinth exists in many places at once, with entrances that appear to those who are attuned to the rhythms of nature and open to wonder. The keeper asked if I would become a guide for others who found their way to the labyrinth, especially children whose imaginations would allow them to fully experience its magic. The orb's images fade, leaving only its gentle pulsing light as Eloise looks at each child in turn, her expression warm with affection. And that is how I came to be here, guiding you through this magical place. The labyrinth chose me because of my connection to seasonal traditions and my ability to bridge different worlds, the mundane and the magical, the French culture of my birth, and the diverse backgrounds you bring to this adventure. This is your fourth choice, dear listeners. How should our explorers respond to Eloise's story? 1. Should they ask more questions about the keeper and Eloise's role as a guide? 2. Should they share stories from their own cultural backgrounds and family traditions? 3. Should they ask to participate in one of the French spring traditions Eloise described? As you consider this choice, imagine sitting in the beautiful pavilion, surrounded by the magical projections from the equinox orb, with the scent of spring blossoms in the air and the gentle sound of musical fountains in the background. The children, moved by Eloise's openness in sharing her story, decide on the third option, to participate in one of the French spring traditions she described. Could we create our own jardin miniature? Maya suggests, her creative spirit inspired by the image of the miniature gardens. It would be a wonderful way to connect with your traditions. Oui, c'est une excellente idée, Eloise responds enthusiastically. The labyrinth has provided everything we need. She gestures to the edge of the pavilion where small ceramic dishes, packets of seeds, and tiny gardening tools have appeared, as if the labyrinth itself had anticipated their choice. The children gather these supplies and return to the cushions, where Eloise guides them through the traditional process of creating miniature spring gardens. First, you must set your intention, she explains, demonstrating by holding a seed between her palms and closing her eyes briefly. Think about what you hope will grow and flourish in your life this spring, just as these seeds will grow in the soil. The children follow her example, each holding seeds and setting personal intentions. Luca focuses on growing his scientific knowledge, Maya on developing her artistic abilities, Aiden on building new friendships, and Zara on nurturing her connection to nature and the stars. Now, prepare the soil with care, Eloise continues, showing them how to fill their dishes with the rich, dark earth provided. In Provence, we say that the soil remembers the hands that touch it. Your energy becomes part of the garden you create. As they work, Eloise teaches them traditional French gardening terms. La terre, for soil, les graines, for seeds, arroser, for watering, and pousser, for the growth that will follow. Each garden should reflect its creator, she explains, as the children arrange their seeds in different patterns. There is no right or wrong way, only your way. Luca creates a precise geometric pattern with his seeds, reflecting his logical mind. Maya arranges hers in an artistic swirl. Aiden places his in careful rows that maximize growing space, while Zara creates a star pattern that mirrors constellations she knows. As they complete their miniature gardens, the equinox orb floats closer, hovering above their creations. Suddenly, it releases a gentle shower of light, like golden rain, that falls over the dishes. Where the light touches, the seeds begin to sprout immediately, tiny green shoots pushing up through the soil in accelerated growth. The magic of the labyrinth, Eloise explains with a smile, allows us to see the results of our planting right away. In the outside world, you would need to wait patiently for days or weeks. The children watch in wonder as their miniature gardens continue to grow, flowers blooming, tiny leaves unfurling, each garden developing according to the pattern of its planting and the intention of its creator. C'est magnifique, Eloise exclaims, admiring their work. You have created beautiful jardins miniatures. In my village, these would be displayed in the square for all to admire throughout the spring season. Can we take them with us when we leave the labyrinth? Maya asks, already attached to her creation. The physical gardens must remain here, Eloise explains gently, but the growth they represent will continue in your lives outside the labyrinth. The intentions you set while planting will manifest in different ways as spring progresses in your world. As the children contemplate this idea, the equinox orb begins to pulse more intensely, drawing their attention. Within its crystalline depths, a new image appears, a butterfly larger and more elaborate than any they've seen before, with wings that incorporate all three colors, blue, gold, and purple. Le papillon de printemps, the spring butterfly, Eloise says, her voice filled with wonder. It appears only when the equinox magic has been fully embraced and understood. It seems your participation in the spring tradition has called it forth. The image in the orb grows clearer and more detailed until suddenly, in a flash of light, a real butterfly emerges from the orb, exactly like the image they saw, with magnificent wings that shimmer with all three equinox colors combined. The spring butterfly circles the pavilion once, then lands on a small pedestal that has appeared in the center of their circle. As it touches down, it transforms into a crystalline figurine, a perfect, permanent representation of itself. A gift from the Labyrinth, Eloise explains, and a sign that you have truly connected with the essence of spring. This butterfly figurine will serve as a key to unlock the final chamber of your equinox journey. The children gather around the pedestal, admiring the beautiful crystalline butterfly. As they do, they notice that the pavilion around them has begun to change. The stained glass dome shifts its patterns, now depicting a new scene. A circular chamber with a flowering tree at its center. The labyrinth is showing us our next destination, Luca observes, his quick mind interpreting the changing images. Oui, Eloise nods. The Chamber of Awakening, La Chambre d'éveil, where the first butterfly of spring makes its appearance. It is there that your equinox journey will reach its culmination. As the children prepare to leave the pavilion, carefully collecting their miniature gardens and the crystalline butterfly, I invite you, dear listeners, to hold these images in your mind. The beautiful pavilion of memories, with its stained glass dome. Eloise, sharing the spring traditions of her French homeland, and the magical miniature gardens blooming before their creator's eyes. Tomorrow, we shall follow our explorers to the Chamber of Awakening, where they will encounter the first butterfly of spring and complete their equinox adventure. Until then, may you find joy in creating your own traditions that celebrate the renewal and growth of this beautiful season. End of episode 4.